This is the image that defines a collapsing presidency. If you drive past 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue this morning, you won't see the symbolic gesture of American democracy. You see a disaster zone. You see a giant, mud-filled crater where the historic East Wing used to stand. You see silent yellow cranes hovering over the executive mansion like vultures. And for the first time in 6 months, you hear something terrifyingly eerie: silence. As of 8 a.m. this Monday, January 26, 2026, all construction on President Trump's controversial $400 million ballroom has been ordered to an immediate and indefinite halt. The hall from hell, as preservationists called it, is dead. A federal judge, appointed by Ronald Reagan no less, just issued a devastating 40-page injunction that doesn't just stop the work. It accuses the administration of deliberate deception, legal vandalism, and gross fiscal negligence. President Trump, already reeling from the Davos disaster, the Japanese market collapse, and the seizure of his properties in New York, just got blindsided in his own backyard. He woke up this morning expecting to see concrete being poured for his monument. Instead, he woke up to federal officers posting a cease and desist order on the White House construction fence. The official reason? The money disappeared. The private donations that were supposed to fund this giant vanity project evaporated after the Japan financial crisis. And without the money, the judge decided that the President of the United States is effectively trespassing on public land, destroying national heritage with an unfunded project. In this special video, we're going to show you the shocking court order that just dropped. We'll show how the East Wing demolition became a political suicide pact. We'll expose the phantom donors who fled the moment markets crashed. And we'll explain why this stalled construction site is the perfect metaphor for a second term that's completely lost its way. The king wanted a castle. He ended up with a hole in the ground. If you want to understand this absurd scandal and what comes next, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Leave that like to strengthen this independent coverage. And tell me in the comments, do you think Trump went too far demolishing a historic part of the White House? Let's get to the facts. To understand the gravity of this decision and why Washington is in absolute shock this morning, we need to go back to late 2025. Shortly after inauguration, President Trump announced the most ambitious and destructive renovation in White House history. He argued that the traditional East Room was too small, too ugly, and too embarrassing to receive world leaders. He famously called the existing facilities Third World in a leaked memo to his chief of staff. His solution? The Grand Ballroom, a proposed 90,000 square foot extension that would rival European palaces. He wanted gold leaf details. He wanted 30-foot ceilings. He wanted a dedicated Victory balcony facing the Treasury Department. The price tag was astronomical, $400 million. But he had a plan to sell it to the public. He promised taxpayers wouldn't pay a penny. He claimed a coalition of private patriots, billionaire donors, had already pledged the full amount. He called it a gift to the nation. The cost, however, wasn't just financial, it was historical. To build this monstrosity, the administration argued they needed to demolish the existing East Wing. That meant destroying the family theater, dismantling the First Lady's offices, and excavating the historic gardens. Preservationists screamed. The National Trust for Historic Preservation sued immediately. They argued, you can't tear down a UNESCO-adjacent site just because you want a bigger dance floor. They argued, the White House belongs to the people, not the temporary occupant. But Trump ran over them, literally. In December, his Department of Justice used a legal loophole. They argued the project was a national security matter, claiming the new structure would include a state-of-the-art underground bunker to replace the old PEOC, the Presidential Emergency Operations Center. Judge Richard Leon, the federal judge overseeing the initial challenge, was skeptical. But confronted with the national security letter, he allowed demolition to proceed under strict conditions. You can dig the hole, but you cannot pour a single ounce of concrete for the new structure until the money is in the bank and the project is approved by the National Capital Planning Commission. Trump gambled. He tore everything down, assuming the money and permits would come later. He assumed he could bully the donors and the regulators. He assumed wrong. This morning, Judge Leon returned to court, and according to everyone in the room, he was furious. We have the court transcript released minutes ago. it reads less like a legal opinion and more like an indictment of the entire administration. The judge eviscerated Department of Justice lawyers for what he called bait and switch of monumental proportions. Here's the core of the decision. The administration admitted in a sealed confidential filing Friday night that private funding for the ballroom is currently non-existent. The $400 million pledge was based on non-binding commitments from major donors, hedge fund managers, real estate moguls, casino barons, the usual MAGA donor class suspects. But remember what happened this week? The Japanese market collapse, the asset seizure in New York, the Davos exit. These donors are currently facing emergency margin calls from banks. They are watching their portfolios bleed. When the Treasury Department called to collect actual cash for the ballroom fund on Friday, the donors vanished. One major donor, allegedly a Las Vegas casino magnate who had pledged $50 million, formally withdrew his commitment Saturday night, citing market volatility and fiduciary responsibility to shareholders. Judge Leon's decision was brutal. He wrote, "The executive branch demolished a historic federal structure on the promise of replacement funds that do not exist. This court will not allow the People's House to be transformed into an abandoned construction site fueled by phantom capital and broken promises." He ordered an immediate work stoppage. He ordered the General Services Administration, GSA, to provide a plan to restore the site, meaning filling the hole, if funding isn't secured in 30 days. Think about the implications of this order. The President of the United States may be forced by a federal judge to fill in the hole he dug, leaving the White House smaller, uglier, and less functional than when he found it. He'll be the president who destroyed the East Wing and left a patch of grass in its place. But the decision gets worse. The national security excuse, the shield Trump used to start demolition, collapsed spectacularly. For months, the White House claimed this ballroom was necessary for continuity of government. They claimed the basement would house a new situation room that would be impenetrable. At this morning's hearing, the judge revealed a confidential Secret Service report the administration tried to hide. Turns out the Secret Service opposed the project. The report states the massive construction zone created a critical security vulnerability on the east side of the complex. The open hole exposes the residence foundations to drone attacks, acoustic surveillance, and tunneling risks. The Secret Service explicitly stated the ballroom design with glass walls was a nightmare to protect. They called it a sniper's paradise and surveillance magnet. The judge caught the administration in a lie. They used national security as a pretext to bypass historic preservation laws, when in reality the project harmed national security. This destroys the project's legal defense. It means the ballroom isn't a government necessity, it's a vanity project. And under the Antiquities Act and the National Historic Preservation Act, you cannot destroy national monuments for vanity. Let's talk about the devastating political optics. President Trump is a man obsessed with aesthetics. He builds gold towers, he wears perfect suits, he wants to project an image of absolute perfection and control. Instead, he's living in a construction site. The view from his bedroom window is a mud pit, piles of dirt, idle machinery, and orange safety fencing. The noise of the machines, now silent, has tormented the West Wing for months. Officials report that meetings in the Oval Office were constantly interrupted by beeping trucks and pile driver hammering. And now, with work stopped, it becomes a monument to failure. Every time a foreign leader visits, they have to be driven past the Trump crater. When the UK Prime Minister visits next month, his motorcade will pass a hole in the ground covered with blue tarps. Every news broadcast reporting from the North Lawn has yellow cranes in the background. It's a constant, physical, undeniable reminder that the president started something he couldn't finish. Compare this to the great builder persona he defended during the campaign. I built things ahead of schedule and under budget. I'm going to rebuild America. This project is behind schedule, over budget, unfunded, and now illegal. It connects perfectly with the asset seizure narrative we discussed before. He can't pay for his building in New York. He can't pay for his ballroom in DC. The theme is insolvency. For you Brazilians to understand, imagine if the president demolished part of the Planalto Palace promising to rebuild with private donations, and then the money disappeared. It would be an unprecedented national scandal. That's exactly what's happening in the United States. Why did the donors really bail? It wasn't just the stock market collapse, though that provided the excuse. It was the toxic brand. After the Davos disaster, where the president was openly ridiculed by the world, putting your name on a Trump ballroom became a liability. Imagine being a Fortune 500 CEO or a major hedge fund. Do you want your name carved in marble in a ballroom being sued by every preservation group in America? Do you want to be associated with an administration that's seizing private property in Greenland and having its own property seized in New York? The project's prestige turned to poison. Donors realized this ballroom might never be finished. Or worse, the next president, who according to the total destruction polls will likely be a Democrat, might tear it all down the moment they take office. Nobody wants to pay $50 million for a building that's going to be demolished in 2029. It's a bad investment. Democrats are already weaponizing this, and they're not holding back. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries released a statement minutes after the decision. He tore down the East Wing, he tore down the economy, he tore down our alliances. Now he stands in the mud of his own creation. He is the demolisher in chief. It's a powerful, visceral metaphor. The East Wing contained history. It contained the spirit of past First Ladies, Jackie Kennedy, Nancy Reagan, Michelle Obama. By destroying it for a ballroom, Trump entered the barbarian stereotype. And by failing to rebuild it, he enters the incompetent stereotype. Poll numbers are being updated as we speak. Independents are disgusted by the waste. Focus groups are saying things like, why is he building a $400 million ballroom when gas is $6 a gallon? He cares more about his parties than my grocery bill. The contrast between his luxury obsession and voters' economic pain is lethal. It reinforces the let them eat cake narrative. So what happens now? The judge gave 30 days, fined $400 million in cash, or fill in the hole. Can Trump find the money? Maybe he could try diverting funds from the military, like he did with the border wall in the first term. But the judge anticipated this. The order specifically prohibits use of appropriated funds without congressional approval. And with total destruction approaching, Congress won't give him a penny. He could try to get a foreign government to pay, the Saudi ballroom. Imagine the scandal. A foreign power paying for an addition to the White House would be instantly impeachable. It would violate the Emoluments Clause in the most direct way possible. So the most likely scenario is the most humiliating. GSA hires a contractor to dump dirt back in the hole. They plant some grass, they restore the outer residence wall, and the Trump ballroom becomes a phantom limb of history. This is the nightmare scenario for a man who wants to leave a physical legacy. He wanted to leave a palace. He's leaving a patch of fresh grass where a historic building used to stand. It's a symbol of a presidency that promised greatness and delivered destruction. The Hall from Hell is the perfect capstone to this week of horrors. It started with a lie in Davos about Greenland. It continued with a financial collapse in Tokyo. It came home with a seizure in New York, and it ends with a hole in the ground in Washington. The structure of the Trump presidency is collapsing. Like the East Wing, the foundations, money, fear, image, competence are gone. We are watching a president under siege in his own home, literally. He can't build, he can't borrow, he can't brag. The only thing he can do is rage at the mud outside his window. We will be monitoring GSA records closely. If they issue a remediation contract, also known as the fill in the hole order, we will alert you immediately, because that will be the moment the Trump era officially runs out of concrete. The builder president became the destroyer president, and the hole in the ground on Pennsylvania Avenue is undeniable proof. If this video helped you understand this absurd scandal, leave the like that strengthens the channel. Subscribe and turn on notifications because the situation is evolving fast and you want to be here when the next chapters of this collapsing presidency explode. Tell me in the comments, do you think Trump was irresponsible demolishing a historic part of the White House without securing the money first? I want to know your opinion. See you in the next video, and remember, he wanted a castle. He ended up with a hole. The empire is crumbling, one brick at a time.